Welcome back to the podcast, guys. We're in episode 2. Chris, what's going on? Happy New Year,
What's
man.
what's happening? Happy New Year to you and everybody.
Yes, sir. Do you have any? Do you know any plans? You have anything going on?
Um, well, I had 2 weeks off, and now I'm having anxiety because I have to go back tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you all hear this, I will be working again.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Did you get some nice stuff for Christmas?
I did. We usually don't exchange too much anymore, just because everybody's older. But we still had fun and got to eat a lot of food. I think I gained a little bit too much weight.
Yeah, you and me both. You and me
Yeah,
both. So let's jump right into it.
yeah. What do
I
you
got a
got for me
question. I
today?
got a question for you.
Uh oh.
I
I
got a
see it.
question
I,
for you.
I see a light bulb again.
Oh man.
What do you got?
Okay, so you know a lot of stuff that I talk about, I get straight off of Facebook because I love looking at these things on Facebook and seeing what
Mm-hmm.
everybody's talking about.
Yep.
And right now, everybody is anxious to get into TSI,
Okay.
timber stand improvement stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me personally, I don't have a lot of my own property. I just have 3 acres here at the house, and my destination plots are mostly fields with
Mm-hmm.
woods around that someone else owns.
Yep.
But I know we could talk about like the property that you and I worked on
Yeah.
for the last 3 years, and what property that you have now. In the area that you was leasing now. Let's start on that one. What techniques? What is? Did you use TSI on this new property that you had leased this past year?
We did. Timber stand improvement. It's a good technique to use virtually on any property if it needs it. Each property is going to be different, but on our new property, we did use some. Now, when you start getting into lease properties, it's a touchy subject with the landowner because you don't
Right.
know, it's his timber, so you
Yeah.
gotta verify that, with the landowner to make sure that you can do some. So we did, and I did do some cutting. I basically took out some bigger. It was this ridge top, and I wanted to create this ridge top into bedding area. Add some more cover in there, and the way that it just flowed through the property, it was a perfect area to do some TSI in. Now, basically, I took out some larger beech trees because they were just huge trees. They shaded out everything. We took out some old maples and a few other different trees, and within that, I cut the larger trees down first, and then I was able to actually hinge cut some other trees, which hinge cutting can be this whole different thing. It's not used. It can't be used really everywhere. It just really depends what type of timber that you actually have.
Yeah. Some
Um,
species are better for than others
they
to
are.
to be cutting and trying to hinge.
Yep. I mean, you can hinge cut a lot of different trees. I mean, you can do maples, you can do oaks and hickory. There's all kinds of different trees that you can hinge cut. Now, the whole key with that is obviously if you hinge cut a tree, if it doesn't get sun, it's going to die.
Yeah, you have to have enough
Yes.
of the forest open above you
Hmm.
to get light down, because depending on what you're doing the hinges for,
Hmm.
if you're doing it for a transition zone, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for food purposes, you need that light to be able to shine, and you need the hinge to stay connected
Hmm.
so that the light hits that, and then you get the fresh sprouts up for food.
Yeah.
Correct.
Plus, you got the
Okay,
you
gotcha.
know the tops. The
Yes.
tops, the buds, because springtime they'll bud out, and the deer will. You put a trail camera on them treetops, and your trail camera is going to blow up.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Um, but yeah, so we did a lot of that, and that's the reason we took out those larger trees to be able to get some sunlight down in there to feed, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
the hinge cuts.
Now, is that your favorite technique to use, or was that just the instance that you was dealt with and needed to address?
My favorite technique as far as hinge cutting, or
Or like in your TSI, is that your favorite thing? I know you bought a habitat hook and you like to use that for hinging and things.
yeah, so I don't use a lot of hinges really. I mean, it just really depends on the type of timber that I have. The smaller diameter trees.
Yeah.
I do plan on going back in there in the next month or so and doing more hinge cutting and more actually. cutting the whole tree down.
Okay.
Now, I did. I want to talk about that real quick. Is select cuts, because I actually went to a client last week, and I actually posted a video about it today on YouTube. But I went to his property, and they actually had a previous land consultant come out to that property, and it was a solid 40-acre chunk, basically in a square, all surrounded by woods everywhere, all connected, big chunk of woods. And the consultant came out, and they wrote him a plan to select cut the woods.
Okay.
That's all they did, was select cut the woods.
Did they tell him which species to cut, or
He told him to hire a forester and let the forester take
okay,
over and you know take the markable timber or whatever,
gotcha.
and that's all they needed to do to
Hmm.
improve their property. That's it.
Okay.
They did lay out some tree stands for them, but that was it. So I guess this was 2 years ago. So I guess they were kind of unhappy with the results, and they sent me an email a couple months back and wanted me to come out. So I looked it over, and he gave me all the information on it, and I was like, yeah, I can help you out. So I went out, and like I said, they select cut the entire property, and it was pretty heavy on the select cut. But within that, what the landowner was telling me was that, yeah, there's tree stand set up, but how the heck do you kill the deer?
Right.
Because
How do you hunt something that's just been demolished?
yeah, it's been demolished. I mean, yeah, you're going to attract a lot of deer in there, but where are they at?
Yep.
They're going to
Yep.
be everywhere.
Yep. Got to steer
So
them through.
yep. So which in turn led them to trying to maneuver around their property and just spooking deer out
Yeah.
because they weren't in certain areas. They were everywhere.
Right.
So what they should have did was take a chunk of that, a 20 acre, 15-acre patch, 10 acres, or do like smaller patches, 5, 10 acres, and select cut that to create strategic areas that has more cover, then transition into some food plots. So you can have some definition of movement
Hmm.
so you can actually bow hunt. Because if
Yeah.
you have a solid chunk of woods that's, you know, select cut, how do you bow hunt it?
Right.
I mean, yeah, you can set up and a deer walks, but you get lucky.
Yeah. Where
But
were they?
or
Where were they headed? Did he have any ag around him? Was there any plots outside of his property? Or
no, there was bigger woods that it was connected to, but his neighbor, like, I don't know, I think it was about 3/4 of a mile away, actually did food plots.
okay.
So he said what was happening was the deer were on his property feeding on the woody browse in the fall and winter, and then they would actually transition out to his neighbor's food plot,
Yeah.
which makes sense because when a deer or even us, when we eat hard to digest food, we need something to wash it down.
Yeah.
So they're eating all this woody browse all day, and then they go out to the
They
food
go to
plot
get
to
green.
get green.
Yep.
And I was explaining to them, and even in the spring and summer, people think that deer like to drink water. Well, they do, but they get most of their moisture content through green food.
Well, I just did a video yesterday, and it's going to be put out here in a couple of days. By the time this comes out, the video will be out already. But I made a big point about the the vegetation is 80% water
Yes. Yeah.
and 20 almost 20% carbon and some other things.
Hmm.
Um, so the vegetation is full of moisture, and
Hmm.
that's where the deer get their moisture
Yes.
until they get so thirsty they get to a creek or a river or a puddle, but the majority of the time, like you said, after they eat their 5 6 times a day, 4 or 5 pounds of food, they've
Hmm.
got to get some of that green in them to be able to digest this and chew their cud and all the things that they do.
It's interesting. I always thought it was 4 to 5 pounds of food per day, but now I saw some new research or whatever, but it depends on how much the deer weighs. But now they're saying it could be up to like 8 pounds. I saw,
Well, I believe it. I
which,
mean, look at
they're,
these deer up in Wisconsin that weigh
yeah,
300 pounds.
yeah.
They got to sustain somehow. You
I
know,
mean, they eat all day long.
they pack it in.
They're browsing animals, so
They pack it in.
every time they're walking around traveling, they're nibbling on stuff.
Yep, yep. So, like this time of year is a good time to do this type of work, because you're going to be knocking down these tops with the
Mm-hmm.
buds on them,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, the leftover things behind the deer are going to be eating like crazy, especially with this the lack of acorns this year that we had. Um, that deep freeze that we just had may have killed off a lot of plots. That's part of my video coming out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so do you do any of this girdling or hacking squirts or any of this type of thing?
I do. Remember, well, you hunted with me at the old farm. That food plot we made in the woods.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
actually went around that food plot and girdled the trees.
Hmm.
Well, I didn't. I hack and squirted them.
Yeah.
Which you can make the point that they're the same, but um, I hack and squirted them because we there was already trees that we took down and moved to the side, so I didn't want to
Yes.
cut more down and then I just have a mess.
Yeah.
So basically, I just went around that food plot and hack and squirted some trees just to get
Hmm.
some extra sunlight. And that work we put into that plot, it turned
Yeah.
out great.
Yeah, it did, and I incorporated a little bit of that here on my home property.
Yeah.
I uh,
Well,
I
we
did
did
girdles.
some.
I girdled some trees and I squirted them,
Yeah.
and then I tried to do some hack and squirt, which on bigger trees doesn't work real well. I find that it works better on trees like yay big.
Yeah, hack and
You know,
squirt works really good on smaller diameter. The bigger
hmm
trees, if you girdle it,
and
it
then
works
spray
really
it in
well.
there.
Yeah, and you can spray it around that girdle.
I even tried a little experiment where I took a drill bit, big
Mm-hmm.
3/8 drill bit, and drilled it down on a
Yeah.
45, and I
Yep.
filled that up with glye, which probably wasn't the best thing to spray it with, but I tried it. Just and it,
Yeah.
and it worked to a point. I guess
Mm-hmm.
Tordon and things like that is better for that type thing. But
Yeah, I've been using RTU, which is just
okay,
ready to. It's a mix of herbicides in there, and
yeah,
it comes pre-mixed, and it works really good.
okay, okay,
So yeah, that's TSI. Like I said, it's a great technique, and now's the time to do it
yeah,
between December, January, February, and even March in some areas. Get that down.
yeah.
Get the sun-
I'm
get the
sorry. Go
sunlight
ahead.
open. Get the just
Yeah,
get that sunlight open now, so you have that flush of green in the spring.
I like what some of the guys are talking about. Holding off on cutting some of their maples like towards April.
Hmm.
Like March, April time, because that's when the tree is trying to really flush and get its nutrients up there and get the leaves started.
Hmm.
And they say when you cut these maples down at that point, you get all those fresh sprouts coming off that stump, and it's so nutrient rich.
Yeah.
And the deer just love that. I thought
Hmm.
that was a pretty cool idea.
Well, we
Pretty
did
cool.
that the old farm, and
Yeah,
they tore it up.
they tear that stuff up for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
So now that
Yep.
we got that covered, I got a question for you
Okay.
because this has been we briefly mentioned this about a month ago or something, and even though I'm a non-resident PA hunter, everybody can hate me. I'm a non-resident PA hunter, but the tag system sucks in PA, I think. And you've read some information, or the game commission is talking about it
I know
about
where you're
the
going.
yeah about this pink envelope change.
Yep.
So what have you heard, and
Well,
do you like it or hate it?
I have mixed emotions about it because I'm afraid. This is my opinion now. I'm afraid that it might be a little lopsided, and let me explain. The pink envelope thing. They You would have to send for your one tag 1 week and
Hmm.
wait about 3 more weeks or so, and then you could send for your second one, and that kind of made it a fair playing field, I think.
Hmm.
Now, if they do away with the envelope system, they're talking about sort of treating it like some of the other states, like yourself in Maryland. Like you
Yeah.
said, you get so many tags right over the counter when you purchase your license.
Yeah,
Boom, there you go. How many tags do you get, Dave?
when you buy your license in Maryland, you get one buck tag, and depending on what county you're in, unlimited doe tags.
Unlimited.
Yeah,
See,
unlimited.
now in the area I am in, I can only possess up to 3 doe tags,
Hmm.
and if I use a doe tag, and if the county seat, the courthouse, has any left over, I can apply for another one to replace that.
Hmm.
Okay, that's the way it was working, but it was just a system with this envelope thing. that people were just not in favor of, and they want it to be like other states.
Yeah.
Now, um, I think that it might operate in an instance where when you purchase your license, like I said, this is my opinion. I haven't really heard anything concrete yet. They're still voting on all this. But we do know that pink envelopes are going away. They just haven't figured out how they're going to do it. And I was thinking if if you went and bought your tag, and I'm hoping they give you one doe tag right away. And I'm thinking what they might do is have the dates still where you would apply on a certain date.
Mm-hmm.
But the only problem with that is, and this is what I'm afraid of, if you can get online and just purchase a bundle of them that night,
Yeah.
you're going to have guys staying up till midnight waiting for the 1201 to roll over, and they're going to have their credit card in hand
Mm-hmm.
and, buy a bundle of them. And if everybody does that, it's going to really lopside the system, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a lot of people upset because they won't be able to get a doe tag. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. That's my opinion, what I think they're going to do.
Now, when
Not sure.
you say if people can get a toe tag, it's because they only allocate so many per
Yeah,
zone.
per zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They vote on that every year according to what last year's harvest was,
Right.
and they figure how many doe they got to take out, and that's how many they allocate. And a lot of times, the first round, some of these zones sell out in the first
Yeah.
round.
Right. I've noticed that.
The round or the zone I'm in, usually the second round, it's done. And I end up having, if I want a third tag, I usually get a different zone tag, which I did this past year. I got 2 in my zone, which is 2F, and I
Mm-hmm.
purchased a 2D one in another zone. So that was my 3 tags that I could possess.
Right.
And I don't need any more than that. That's plenty. But other people, I'm not judging how many they get, but I'm just wondering, and everybody else in PA is wondering how they're going to do this because they don't have a clear plan ironed out yet.
Well, they usually come out with what, the the new regulations in what, like June or something,
Yeah, they'll have all kind of meetings through
the winter and stuff.
March and April,
Yeah.
and then it'll be nailed down by about end of May and June or so. And it's I'm kind of worried about it. I don't know. It might be a total bad thing.
I'm in favor of it.
Well, I hope it works like Maryland
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
If
The
it
only
works like Maryland, I think it'll be okay.
right.
If you buy your license and they give everybody 2 or whatever,
Right.
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's
And
fair.
just because you have to, don't mean you have to use them.
Correct.
People think they have a tag, they have to use it. You don't have to use
Oh,
it.
we see those arguments every year.
I know, every year.
Yeah.
That's what made me think of it.
They don't believe in shooting does, and you're a bad guy because
Right.
you're killing off mama doe.
Yep.
That's next year's bucks, and
Yep.
yeah, there's arguments for all that.
Yeah. I mean, if
For
you're a
sure.
private landowner, it's obviously it's up to you. You need to evaluate the the herd in your area
Yeah.
and make that decision if you need to shoot a doe or something.
Yeah, I made a video about that before too, about how many doe do you need to take and things.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's all personal preference and up to your representatives to allocate those tags. I mean, that's why it's so important to report your harvests.
Mhm.
They do those studies, and it's important just to turn them in.
Yeah.
For years there, they let you skip them, and there was no repercussions. But now they're cracking down on that a little bit.
Well, I know the old property that I used to hunt here in Baltimore County. That was, I believe, back then it was maybe 30 tags, 30 doe tags you could use. And I used to hunt it with a friend of mine, and we would shoot 10 does a piece just because the property backed up to a state park, and there was so many deer in there. I mean, there was no food. I mean, it was a typical state park property where you could stand on the ground and see 300 yards through the woods.
Right.
And there was just so many deer. So we're slinging arrows, we're killing deer left and right. After a couple of years, I'm like, I'm blowing a lot of money on arrows.
Yeah.
I mean, it got to a point because we could donate here in
Mhm.
Maryland,
Yep. Yep.
and we just take it to a butcher and they donate. Well, the butcher shop started getting so many donations that they were just getting annoyed
Yeah.
because when they get this donation, they're butchering this deer for free.
See here, there's places that'll take them, but you have to pay
All right. Well,
to,
me and
to
you had
have
to
them
do that.
butchered. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we do. Dave and I donated some deer together from the
we
property
did.
that we used to
Yeah,
hunt, and
for we did that
we
like 2, 3 years ago.
yeah we donated a couple deer, but we had to pay for them to take them and to
Hmm.
give them away. We
Yeah,
had to pay to give them away,
yeah,
but that was okay. We
yeah.
needed to
At,
to, to get some of those does out of there.
at first, I was like, "What the heck? We got to pay? What? That's not a donation then."
Yeah, it's not, but
But it is what
yeah,
it is.
it's a good cause. It's a
Yeah, it
good
is.
cause.
Yeah, they got to get the butcher shop's got to make money, so they got to.
Speaking of the old property,
Uh oh.
let's transition.
Yep.
Our trespassing videos from that property took off like wildfire,
Yeah.
and
So. Yep.
people love this topic.
Yeah.
You start.
Yeah. We did talk about this before we went live here. And we were going to talk about this because it's a very it's a very touchy subject.
Oh
So,
yeah,
um, me and you hunted this property for what, 4 years together? Five,
three. Well,
four?
almost four.
Yeah. The very first year, I had we had this guy come in. We called him the trash bag thief because he came in wearing a trash bag.
Yeah,
And we're also going to talk about some ways how to prevent this if we have time. But he came in with a trash bag and a hammer, wearing a satchel, and he came through and busted a solar panel that was protecting soybeans. He cut the fence, stole a bunch of trail cameras, and he got away with it. I had cell cams there, and I saw it. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, send it to you, freaking out.
yeah. He sent this stuff to me, freaking out, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because
Yeah,
we joke on each other a lot. We send
yeah,
stupid stuff back and forth on Messenger, and I'm like, are you serious?"
yeah,
And he started sending me pictures, and I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me!"
yep. So, I mean, I've been hunting for 25 years. I've never had anything like this ever happen. So, long story short, I rebounded from that and I did put a video out on Facebook about it and it went nuts. I mean, it took off. The neighbors found out, saw it on Facebook. They were contacting me and it just went crazy.
But then you caught the dude in the spring too. Remember turkey hunting?
Yes, but me and TJ, if you weren't there, but me and TJ had a
Yeah, that day I
trespasser as
wasn't there.
well.
Yep,
We
yep.
were sitting in a ground blind and we had another guy, just he walked 20 yards from the ground blind and I was sleeping and TJ like bumped me. He's like, "Hey man, there's a trespasser." I saw him and I like jumped out of the blind and I said, "TJ, grab your gun," and we walked up on the guy and he was just hunting the property. I said, "Hey man, like this is, private property. You just leisurely walk on other people's land?" And it was really weird. So then we had that guy in the spring, like you said.
Yeah,
The guy was it was an adult hunting on Youth Day by himself.
yeah. On Youth Day,
Yep.
and
So this,
then we had the guy. Remember when I shot the doe across the field out of the blind, and there was that big blood spot in the snow.
yes,
You
yes,
remember
yeah,
that guy was standing? I think it was
yes,
flintlock season.
flintlock. Yep.
You know, it was he that bloody snow stayed there, that stain, and he come and you had a picture of him standing over the blood stain looking
Yes, I
at it.
did. Yeah,
You remember that?
yeah, I remember. Yep. And then I think we made it through that year. The following year, I think we were okay. I don't think we had any issues. Then the
Yeah.
third year
Here we go.
got really interesting. So we had this a neighbor, it was a kid, sent me a message on Instagram and said, "Hey, I know who this trespasser is. I'll tell you who it is. Just leave me out of it." I said, "Okay." So he told me the name of the guy. Well, me and Chris started researching this online and we ended up finding the guy on social media. And that led down a rabbit hole of the neighbors being like cousins or something or relatives, and
It goes back years too.
it goes back years. And
The guy was trouble.
yes, the guy was trouble. And the neighbor, remember the guy way down the street that had the fenced in and it had all them signs up there?
Yes.
That I'm not gonna say his name, but
No, no.
um he was like relatives or something with this guy. And then that guy with all the fencing and stuff, he accused us
Yeah.
of riding four-wheelers on his property.
Yeah.
And I said, what's going on? Like, I mean, that property was really spooky and really
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the interesting part about this is we ended up finding a guy. Me and you went to the police station and we filed a police report.
Yeah.
And the officer actually wanted to help because I called the cops many times and they came out to the property and they didn't do nothing. But the guy me and you found was very helpful. And he was like, I'll solve this. And
Yeah.
he ended up going to the guy's house, and I'll leave it at that. He went to the guy's house.
Yeah.
Well, that season, me and you found the two guys carrying buckets into the woods.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm assuming there was corn in there and you can't bait.
Yeah.
So, and
Because
we
they
looked,
carried buckets in and left one of them in the woods.
yes, unless they were just buckets to sit on. I don't know. But that was right before rifle season.
Yeah.
So, with long story short, the officer ended up finding them two guys
Yes, he
just
did.
off the trail camera picture. And it was a father and a son
Yep. They
that
got identified.
they got identified, and the cop went to his house as well. So that was that.
Hmm.
The most interesting part about this is the following year, again, me, you, and your father were hunting there.
Yeah.
Okay. Me and your father were hunting there. Me and your dad was in the Sad Daddy blind.
Hmm.
You were up on top of the ridge overlooking overlooking the drop off there.
Yeah.
And your father had his gun out the window at some deer in in a kill plot. And the deer, there was a couple there, and all of a sudden the deer looked up kind of behind us a little bit. So I'm like, okay, hold off. There's might be a buck or something coming. Well, I kind of stuck out my head out the window a little bit, and here's this guy, another guy, walking through the property with a rifle. I about knocked your dad out of the blind. He's like, oh my, and, and he's like, he gets out the way, and I like climb down, and I run over to the guy, and I just was like, dude, like, what is going on, man? Like, it's open day of rifle season. You're just walking through my property.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And
And
I
we had
actually
just posted it. Remember, we
we did,
posted it in purple painted all four sides.
yeah, which was already posted previous to all this,
It
but
was.
we went around
We
and
added signs.
we
Yeah.
added signs plus the paint because
Yep.
that purple paint law came out.
Yep.
And long story short, I recorded the video of the guy and I posted it on YouTube because I wanted just to make just like, hey, who is this guy?
Awareness. Yeah.
Awareness of this guy. And if you're going to trespass, like, guess what? You're going on the internet.
Yeah.
And the a TV show actually reached out to us or to me,
Yeah.
and it was A&E, and the show was called Neighborhood Wars, and they said, hey, we saw your video kind of went like viral on YouTube. We want to use your footage for our TV show. I thought it was a scam. I'd never even heard of Neighborhood Wars.
Right.
So long story short, again, they sent all this film stuff out to me. I had to set it up. We had to do like this virtual interview, and it was wild. And the show actually aired season 2, episode 12, and it landed me and your father on TV.
Yeah. Someone texted me and said, "Hey, was Dave on television?" I was like, "I don't know." They was like, "Well, you better look at this." They said, "I think your dad's on TV with Dave." I was like, "What?"
Yep.
So yeah, I looked it up. You can actually find it on the internet.
Yeah, it's on the internet.
What a hoot!
Yeah, after that aired, man, I had dozens of messages from people. They're like, "Hey, man, I saw you on TV, Neighborhood Wars." I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know who they were, but they were like, they would message me and say, "Hey, is this the Dave Richmond that was on Neighborhood Wars?" I'm like, yeah, it is. Like,
You're famous.
no, I ain't famous. But it is funny. I went to a local deli by my house like
Hmm.
about 3 weeks after that aired, and I was standing there in line getting something, and this lady behind the counter, she looked at me like double looked and was like, she's like, I saw you on TV. I saw you on TV, Neighborhood Wars. You're that guy on Neighborhood Wars. And I had no idea who this lady was.
It's hilarious.
So it was a cool experience, but the whole trespassing thing sucks, man. Like
Yeah,
it's I've
it's
learned,
you feel so violated.
yeah, because it's not even so much the I mean, it is dealing with it, but it's a bigger part of you feeling like your time was wasted and your money.
Yeah,
I mean, you can get
yeah,
money back, you can work more, you get money back, but the time that you put in there, the hours you drive to do the work and the labor and stuff like that, it's ignorant, man.
yeah. It is. It
You know,
is.
and there's things you can do, to kind of, eliminate it, but you can put signs up and purple paint and all that stuff, but I'll tell you what, the biggest thing is calling the police and having
Getting
them deal with it.
that and word of mouth.
Yes.
We got the word out, and people were willing to help,
Mm-hmm.
and that's key sometimes
Yeah.
because these folks were trouble,
They were. They
and
were all
they were
trouble.
they were causing problems for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a cool story. Well,
Yeah.
I see we're near our 30-minute mark, Dave.
All right. Well, what do you got going on? You got anything going on this week or weekend? What kind of weather
Uh,
you got?
we've got some decent weather. This weekend it's going to turn colder. It should be good for the Flintlock guys.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some scattered snow and things.
When's that end?
I think it's the 26th of January in PA,
Okay.
if I'm correct.
All right.
Yep. And I don't have a tag left.
Yeah, you're tagged out. It's not a bad thing.
So it's not a bad thing. I don't have
Yeah.
to freeze.
Yeah. Well, only thing I got going on this week, I got 3 consultant trips Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they continue on. All my stuff starting here, so
Yep.
and then
Yep.
we'll bring some more episodes on about talking about more of the TSI stuff. I'm going to start working on that. So
Okay.
that's about it.
All right, folks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to go over and subscribe to our channels. I'm at City Sticker, and that's
Yep.
Whitetail Obsession Outdoors.
That's it. And you can find all these podcasts on all the podcast platforms, the audio version and the video version on YouTube. We'll see you guys on the
Hey,
next one.
guys. We'll see you.
Later.